Hey, morning to you, JT. Hope all is well with you, my brother, and that you're blessed. On my way to out here getting it done, you know. Early bird catches the worm, like they used to say. So, thanks again for responding to the video, my brother. Love the dialogue, just like you said. I'm loving it because it's a definite reach one, teach one moments for me, and just through the process of building, like I said before, with somebody else on you know, who's like you said, you know, you said I sound a lot like you. A lot of the stuff that you, Jamarcus, and Rain, Anthony Hall, you guys on your channel and on the live chats, what I'm telling you, it's like you guys take the words right out of my mouth and a lot of things, and it's like, wow. I won't say right out of my mouth, but right out of my spirit, rather, because it's definitely the spirit that is, you know, the spirit is the real talk in all of this. The spirit is the real talk, and we know who the fake, who the representative of the fake talk is, who's the orator of the fake talking. You know, a lot of what you guys say is on point. I was just on your live last night about the was it John? I can't remember what chapter it was. John 16. I can't remember. John 13. One of the two. Beautiful. It was a great word. So your family, your kids, beautiful young ones you got there, man. Yeah. Hello to y'all. Or tell them I said hi from Nebraska up here all the way. I think you said you're in Texas. So blessings to you all, and thank you for the prayers of me going in higher and higher. You know, that's the only way we can go. It's you know, it's a uphill thing, but it's in this instance it's definitely worth it. It's new heights, new levels in the spirit, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding that he brings. So yeah, beautiful young ones you got there. I feel bad for the flatulence, the gas that you had to deal with at the end of that video. My kids cut up too and laugh their butt off when they do it. I'm like, hey, don't forget to excuse yourself and all that laughter you got going on. Jeez. But yeah, beautiful young ones, man. And you know, a lot of what you were saying about your family, especially, you know, your brother, that's tough, man. That's very tough. I can get it, because it says be in the world but not of the world. Well, you still got people in the world, and that dividing line shouldn't come from us. And in most cases, what I found out, those separations that happen is from the other party. And that's just I think that's just very representative of the God in us, because we're not, you know, we're supposed to love each other as ourselves, love our neighbors as ourselves, you know. And that love of Christ, like I tell my kids a lot, I tell them a lot, I say, hey, people don't, if somebody wrongs you, or you wrong somebody that's not of Christ, don't expect them to have the same type of forgiveness that you have, because it's the love of Christ in you that is able to help you forgive other people for their transgressions, and people that, you know, violate you. It's not going to be so easy for somebody else that's in the world. And so there is that understanding, that wiggle room that we do have, especially for brothers and sisters, family, blood. So I get it. As far as the compromising aspect of it, we're not necessarily compromising, but you know, going out with your friend, your friend invites you to this, your brother invites you to that, you know, whatever. I always try to liken it back to, you know, Jesus was on a mission the whole time he was here. The whole time, you know, whether he was doing works, walking on water. It wasn't, you know, changing water into wine. It wasn't for the sake. These acts, these big things that were happening were not for this that he was doing, that we know, the miracles that he was doing. They weren't just for the sake of, oh man, look, man, Jesus is out there moonwalking on the water. Look at him getting his Billie Jean on. You know, he was, in this instance, just in that example, I was like, he was actually out there, you know, Poseidon, he was actually out there battling an entity who had powers over the water that time. And Jesus superseded him like, nah, not only am I going to stop you, I'm going to walk over you. You know, he trampled that demon, that entity, that false lower G God under his feet. And so he was doing works in the spirit the whole time. You figure, like you guys were saying last night in the chat, Jesus was building, man, I'm going off into a tangent right now, but I gotta, because I was listening to y'all and I'm like, yo, Jesus, you know, when he was trying to prepare them for, hey, I've got to ascend, I've got to be out of here, I'm on a mission. And you get, you know, Jesus was like, you can figure Jesus to like the mother bird, you know, chewing up the food for the spirit and dropping it in the little bird's mouths. You know how it goes. And he was letting them know, hey, you're going to have to be able to get your own food. But even more so, you won't see me again in this form. There was a process of intercession that he had to establish, as far as nobody cometh by the Father but by me. And he could not do that without completing his mission. So he was just preparing them for that. And it's hard, you know, kicking kids out of the nest, so to speak, what he was doing. But he was building them up. And of course, that whole thing about them not being able to get it. Like, hey, I don't get it. Can you understand? Can you stop speaking it to me in similes, metaphors, and parables? Just give it to me straight. And he always knows how to convey his point across to make it easily understandable. But it's done in a way that it makes it easier. Made it easier for his disciples to understand, like, okay, Jesus he's gotta go do something, because he had to go so the Holy Spirit could come back and do what the Holy Spirit needed to do in the Pentecost, that Holy Ghost fire. If Jesus had been soft on his mission, you know, the church wouldn't have been established. So he was always on a mission and he knew what the bigger picture was. I tell people time and time again, hey, you know how many times Jesus, you know, like Pilate and the Roman emperor or the chief, you know, asked him time and time again, hey, are you Jesus, Son of God, Jews, you know, King of the Jews, or whatever. And he could have said, you know what, I give. I don't want to get up on that cross. I know what God has sent me here. I know what I'm here to do. I'm not doing, not today. You know what? Can we meet back here in about a few days or whatever? I got a few more weddings to go to, you know, a few more, you know, bottles of water to turn into wine, what have you. He was always strict with the mission. He never compromised, folded on what he had to do, even on the strength of having to see his beloved disciples, you know, be saddened, leave the people here that he had to leave. So anyway, man, I'm going off into a tangent, but that was beautiful last night. Compromise, we were talking about traditions, like you said, tracing things back. I haven't found anything outside of brushing my teeth that doesn't somehow, some way, shape, or form lead back to like a pagan tradition, pagan practice, Egyptian practice, whatever. It's heavy. It's ingrained in our everyday lives and in a lot of things. It's not grasping at straws. It's not reaching. No, it's you take things back, which is what I do in a lot of, you know, my research or whatnot. You're like, wow, this, that, you know, and so yeah, it's tough. This ring right here, is symbolic and representative of the rings of Saturn. You know, Saturnalia. Know this too, and it's like, wow. If I'm, it's one of those things that you find out, and it's like, whoa, it's in everything. And I call myself not compromising, wanting to be 100. Like you said, it being, how does it look in the eyes of the Father? And that's the way I have to look at a lot of things. I really do. I have to, like, how does it hurt? He knows our hearts. Do we know his? Like I said, how does it hurt him to know? How does it hurt him to see what we do in certain things that he asks us not to do? Black and white. There's disobedience and obedience. And that's just what it is. Like we talked about, all of these aren't damnable offenses as far as, being condemned to hell and whatnot. But there are, like we talking about the 10 Commandments, Jesus expounding on the 10 Commandments in Matthew. And he says, being known as lesser or greater in the kingdom of heaven based off of things we keep, things we don't keep, or things we compromise on and things we don't compromise on, if you take it there. So it's a lot of these things that are easily able to be, that are highly susceptible to being compromised on, is for the sake of, it all boils down to convenience. You figure what's convenient and what isn't, easy or not easy, going against the grain or going along to get along, indoctrination or stepping out of said traditions, said things, whatnot. It's tough, but you go back to the prime example, who is Jesus. Jesus, when he knew what he had to do, it wasn't like, hey, you know what, just don't put me up on the cross, just whip me a few times, let me go about my business. It's like one of those things. He did the extreme for us. How inconvenient was it for him to do what he did for us? We should be, in my opinion, we won't be able to match it, but we should be striving to honor that sacrifice that he made at a low. It wasn't inconvenient for him to do it, to do that. It was a sacrifice. You got to put some respect on what he did. So it wasn't an inconvenience. It was a sacrifice. It wasn't like he just, rolled over, saw his alarm clock go off. He's like, oh yeah, okay, let me go ahead and do this. Go talk to my boys out here real quick, and then I'm going to die for the world and call it a day. No, it was the extreme thing. The most extreme thing we can do for anybody is die for them, is put your life on the line for them. And that's what he did. You think of it this way too, like you were saying about your son. I get it. Giving him back up to God. Now, this is how we look at it. Think about how God looks at that. Giving your son back up to God in the hospital. What's more important to him? You holding his physical body in the air and giving him back to him as far as, hey, thank you, the homage aspect of it, which we're supposed to do? Or is it more important to lead that boy, your son, to Christ? What do you think God looks upon as greater? Because remember that dividing factor from the old to the new was everything was physical in the Old Testament. Everything was spiritual. Everything was outer in the Old Testament. Everything went to the inside in the New Testament. And so, yes, God certainly will. And thank you for honoring what I said as far as giving your firstborn up, holding him up to me and whatnot. But how do you think he looks at it from the standpoint of giving that your son up to Christ, or having him give himself up to Christ as far as giving his life, being saved? That's a question for you. That's another one. Also, as far as convenience goes, convenience is ease of it's just easy, which kind of lends itself to low hanging fruit. And we know the fruits should we the things that we compromise on are the ones that we can just reach out right here and grab. But the heights that we have to go to reach the fruits of the spirit are at the top of the tree. We got to get our Curious George on. And this just is all based off my conviction, man. My conviction was extreme. My conviction had muscles. It was strong. It was very strong, my man. And I look at it. I have to look at it like he looks at it, or how he says that he looks at it. You know, you think of the wrath of God as far as, you know, the flood. It hurt. He was angry, but it hurt him. It hurt. I think what was it? It said it repented him that he made man. It hurt what man was doing at that time. You know what it said in Enoch, Genesis 6 stretched out. The abominations that were going on got down to the nitty gritty of the land, of the people, of the animals, of the children, the women, men. And he had to retail all of that. He had to do away with it. I mean, he kept Noah, perfect in his generations or whatnot, wasn't tainted, wasn't corrupted. He still was in God's creation. You think about that. So in the eyes of God, with a lot of things as far as the world compromising, to where it started out at a low, it always starts out low. It always starts out subtle. Low compromise turns into high compromise on the end. And so you figure it's in the same vein as Eve, it's like she was beguiled, but the serpent capitalized on that desire that she had for that fruit, that he had to have seen her with that. And so the subtlety, the deception, which led to her compromise, and this is all just relating mindset, was, you won't surely die, you can be as gods. And she was based off of her perception, she fell for the deception. And that's just what it was. So anyway, your question about what would I do here? What time is it? 7:47. So I got a chiropractor appointment, and then I got to get to work. Your question about last job on earth, bartender, especially given my struggle. Beautiful relation, and the scenario definitely was suited for me. So thank you for that. It was personalized and it hit home. I wouldn't do it for the sake of, if, like you said, even if it meant, for the stability, or, say, being the difference between me being able to not feed and feed my family. Wouldn't do it. 2 reasons. 1, I'm told in the word, not verbatim, but as far as faith goes, I have to stand on what he says he will do rather than the circumstances of what I see. And how do we compromise? Compromise comes from what we see. First, as the easier way. What we see when everything that he is in spirit, which is within. So from an interior standpoint, we have to revert back. It always tells us to retreat to that secret place, that holy place, that Psalms 91, under his wing, and know that he's got us. In the same sense, it says in Matthew, when he's talking about the little children, and it says something to the effect of, I just honked my horn on accident, about allowing somebody else to stumble, or helping somebody else to stumble, or being the cause for one of these little ones to stumble. I don't necessarily think that he just meant little ones in that. I think he was talking about God's children in general, and being knowingly, from a knowing standpoint of drinking being my stumbling block. I wouldn't cause somebody else. I wouldn't contribute or be the cause for somebody else to stumble as I did either. Nah, wouldn't do that. And I know the verse says it applies to the people that already know him, that you would cause to cause a stumbling block to come in their path or whatnot. But I also believe that applies to anyone, because stumbling is low level. Causing a stumbling block is like taking advantage of, which is low key, which is low level deception. I'm being deceptive in what I'm doing, and I'm taught in the word to be selfless and not selfish, and so I can't do that. Now, in the same light, I got 10 minutes. In the same light, I wanna present this to you. Say, I gotta remember that you may have kids watching this, so or kids may be in your presence, so I'll keep it PG. XXX, 3 X's. We know what that stands for. All right. Now, say you are addicted to said XXX, and you come out of that. God delivers you from that. All right. And the last job on earth again, in this instance, is for you to be a filmer of said XXX. It's the last job in the world. And it's the difference between you feeding and not feeding your family, being able to provide, etc., etc. Would you compromise? Oh, well, I don't want to say that. I'm already giving it away. Would you do it? Would you do it? And if not, why? And if you do, why would you? Because it's just driving home the mindset. It's the same thing applies. We know that it starts out slow and subtle. We know that the enemy is the father of lies. So the enemy is the father of lies, temptation, everything. If anything, said stumbling block of being put in that predicament is a test. Is a test. And I've got to be firm in knowing that, hey, this ain't what I'm supposed to be doing. And God will provide. The Israelites had manna appear out of thin air, walking through. Their feet was blistered, dirty. Oh my goodness. And they were provided for out there. They were hungry. Things just came. They were thirsty. Things just came. It's the difference between seeing the circumstances around you, but knowing in the spirit that God has you. He's got you. He's got you. Man, hey, if Jesus can turn water into wine, if he can direct Moses to part the Red Sea, if he can make fish out of rocks and bread out of rocks, if he can cause hearts to change, if he can do the things that he says he does, which we have seen him do in our own lives, I'm not moved by a temporary setback of being presented with not being able to feed my family. Because again, if we compromise on the small things, we're going to compromise on the bigger things later. That's the way it is set up, my brother. I'm telling you. And so if we compromise on this little thing now, called said temptation, whatever have you in front of us, for the sake of convenience, for the sake of it being easy, what's to say we won't compromise for that mark when it comes? That mark, my friend. What's to say, hey, the difference between being able to see my grandmother on her birthday, and being in full knowledge of, hey, God doesn't look too kindly on that. He said, don't do it. But at the end of the day, Who am I looking to please more, my grandmother or or my father, my real father? I was just talking to my wife. I said, and you know that saying, blood is thicker than water. And these days, especially what it talked about in the New Testament, about how people's hearts were gonna turn cold, mother against father, neighbor against whatever. I said it's not gonna be about blood anymore. It's gonna be about the blood of Christ. The blood of Christ is what's gonna connect people and be that dividing line between people who are of Christ and aren't of Christ. And so, it's really about, do you want the low hanging fruit or the fruits of the spirit? Are you gonna compromise on the low end and be susceptible for compromising on the high end? I have to use those extreme comparative analogies to the mark, because I know the mark is it's there's no coming back from that. So that probably wasn't fair. It was a little extreme, but it's just driving home the mindset of compromising on the small things that lead to bigger things. And that's how the enemy works. He works in subtlety. Look, just as Eve taking a bite of the apple, and we know Adam was the intended target. He was the intended target because nothing happened when she took a bite. Everything changed when he took the bite. The clothes came on, they hid, they were kicked out, things like that. Everything changed because he was the intended target. And it was a low level compromise that turned into us having the Adam's apple, the man's original sin being ingrained in all of us on the way down that we have to repent for. Starts out small. Started out with an apple. So let me know what you think, man. As far as that question that I posed to you, let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you later, man. Love you guys. All right, this is great, and I'm looking forward to more, man. And keep those lives going, man. That live was tough last night.